Carl Jung, a seminal thinker of his time, left behind a rich legacy filled with profound insights into the human psyche. However, there is a foundational understanding that few truly grasp. Everything that occurs in an individual's life originates in their own thoughts. What one thinks about doesn't merely shape their perception of the world, it literally dictates the quality of their entire existence. Nevertheless, the vast majority of people live bound by a continuous inner monologue they didn't consciously choose, finding themselves caught in thought patterns that feel beyond their control. But what if it were revealed that a key lies hidden behind all this? A foundational understanding that, when applied, can transform the entire reality of one's existence. Jung believed that the human mind is structured into two primary components, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious part is the realm where individuals believe they exert full control. It encompasses the decisions they make, the opinions they express, and everything that falls within the sphere of the rational. In reality, however, a significant portion of human actions and thoughts is governed by the unconscious, a powerful, unseen mechanism that guides life without direct awareness from the individual. This implies that many tormenting thoughts, those that appear suddenly without apparent reason and cause one to doubt, fear, or even sabotage their own efforts, stem from the unexplored depths of their psyche. The fundamental challenge is that humanity is not taught how to interact with its unconscious. Individuals grow up believing that if they reject negative thoughts, they will simply vanish. But Jung warned humanity, what is driven deep down does not disappear. It merely retreats into the shadows, accumulating unseen power until it eventually seizes control of one's life in ways they cannot comprehend. These persistent mental images, these inexplicable emotional states, all of it is the unconscious trying to make contact. Imagine one's mind as a vast forest. The sunlight filtering through the canopy symbolizes their consciousness, while the shadowy, unexplored corners where the rays never reach represent the unconscious. These hidden places are, of course, full of mysteries and darkness, but they are by no means adversaries. On the contrary, Carl Jung asserted that confronting one's shadows, that is, the repressed aspects of the personality, serves as the key to regaining full control of one's life. For these shadows are nothing less than parts of oneself that have been rejected or ignored, and now they demand to be seen, heard, and integrated into a complete sense of self. Recall how often you found yourself trapped in cyclical, destructive thoughts. Perhaps you convinced yourself that you weren't good enough, that you would never succeed, or that something would always impede your progress. Have you ever wondered where these intrusive ideas originate? They are not absolute truths dictated by reality. They are rather the result of unconscious patterns that have formed throughout one's life under the influence of past experiences, deep-seated fears, and the expectations of others. Jung urges everyone to challenge these inner dialogues, to pause for a moment and ask themselves, is this statement truly factual, or is it merely a belief I've adopted without critical evaluation? When one begins to practice this approach, something truly remarkable occurs. They realize they don't need to be a slave to their thoughts. They gain the ability to observe them objectively without letting them dictate their reality, and most importantly, they gain the power to choose which thoughts deserve their attention and energy and which to release. The core of the challenge is that individuals live in a society that has systematically conditioned them to neglect their inner world. People are so engrossed in external noise, professional activities, social media engagement, and the judgments of others that they rarely afford themselves the opportunity for deep introspection. However, Jung was convinced that true transformations do not originate externally, but blossom from within the human being. This process can be likened to the growth of a plant. One cannot expect it to flourish if its root system is neglected. In this context, these roots symbolize an individual's thoughts, deeply ingrained beliefs, and an inseparable connection to their unconscious. In this context, it is important to emphasize an individual's mental constructs, even those tinged with negativity, are not enemies. On the contrary, they serve a specific purpose. Jung, in his teachings, stressed that every thought, every emotional experience acts as a messenger, delivering invaluable information about one's inner world. However, to decipher this message, one must learn to listen to it without bias or judgment. Instead of battling one's thoughts, it is recommended to practice conscious observation, asking what exactly they are trying to convey. And most importantly, one should always remember that they are not identical to their thoughts. They are the observer, possessing the inner strength and the right to decide how to engage with these mental manifestations. When an individual embarks on meaningful interaction with their thoughts, a profound transformation occurs within their inner world. One no longer feels imprisoned by an endless cycle of doubt and tormenting anxieties. This oppressive state is replaced by the acquisition of remarkable clarity of consciousness and deep inner peace, feelings that may have previously been inaccessible. It is from this state of calm and balance that one can begin to create the life they genuinely envision. The natural question arises, how can one achieve such mental clarity and gain genuine control over their own thought process? The seminal thinker Carl Jung indicated that the primary step on this path is recognizing that not every mental manifestation that flashes through one's consciousness is truly their own thought. A significant portion of these internal dialogues are merely echoes of old beliefs and deeply ingrained fears absorbed from parents, imposed by society, or even stemming from unprocessed and not fully understood past experiences. These mental constructs, in essence, do not belong to the individual, but they have accompanied them for so long that they begin to perceive them as an immutable, absolute truth. Consider for a moment, how often have you allowed yourself to sink into doubt before daring to try something new? The inner voice that persistently whispers, "What if I fail miserably? What if I'm not good enough for this?" is not your true inner voice. It's merely an echo, a reverberation of all those times others expressed doubts about your abilities or projected their own deep-seated fears onto you. Jung precisely defined this phenomenon as the power of the collective shadow, an unseen yet potent accumulation of unconscious behavioral patterns and energetic influences that impacts entire social groups and even all of humanity. However, there's an encouraging perspective. One can free themselves from oppressive inner influence if they begin to consciously perceive their thoughts without succumbing to automatic reactions. When this critical voice arises in consciousness, instead of unconditionally accepting its assertions, it's recommended to ask yourself, what is your true purpose here? What exactly are you trying to protect? For behind every seemingly negative thought lies a hidden intention. It's quite possible that this inner critic seeks to ensure one's safety, to shield them from risks, to avoid potential harm. However, the reality is that such a form of protection is often no longer necessary. The individual possesses far greater inner strength than they realize, and now they have the opportunity to choose a different path forward. Carl Jung firmly believed in the concept of individuation, which is nothing less than the process of becoming one's true self. This means not transforming into what others expect to see, and not trying to fit into society by conforming to external molds, but uncovering one's authentic self, the being that is in complete harmony with its core values, cherished dreams, and life purpose. To achieve this profound transformation, one must resolutely confront their shadows, those aspects of the personality that have long been ignored or suppressed because they were perceived as negative or unacceptable. Consider the following example. Reflect on an aspect of your personality you've tried to hide from yourself and others throughout your life. It might be a deep-seated fear, an oppressive insecurity, or even a cherished dream that seems entirely unattainable. Now, imagine that instead of rejecting this part of yourself, you consciously choose to integrate it. Carl Jung, the seminal thinker, asserted that when an individual integrates their shadow aspects, they unleash a colossal amount of life energy. It's comparable to a powerful river whose flow has been blocked by artificial barriers for years. This energy, previously constrained and suppressed, now becomes fully available for truly significant and meaningful pursuits. However, one crucial point is essential to grasp here. This process is not instantaneous, it's not a one-time action, but rather continuous inner work that demands a deep commitment to oneself, a commitment to sincerity and genuine courage. Inevitably, there will be days when one might feel demoralized, when habitual thought patterns and old mental templates will seek to regain their dominance. But each time an individual consciously chooses to face these challenges head-on, instead of avoiding confrontation, they take a confident step towards achieving inner freedom and true control over their own thoughts. To find inner peace, one doesn't need to achieve absolute perfection. Carl Jung, the seminal thinker, taught that true perfection is not an unattainable goal, but a profound process of integration. This process involves the ability to accept both the light and dark aspects of one's nature, for only with complete self-acceptance can an individual cease the internal struggle with their own mind and begin to live life with true authenticity. Jung also asserted that our unconscious has its unique way of communicating, manifesting through symbols, dreams, and deep-seated emotions. Consequently, instead of confronting one's mind, it is far more productive to learn to understand it. To do this, it is suggested to ask oneself a series of questions. What recurring emotional states prevail in your life? What specific emotion lies behind the feeling of dissatisfaction? When one begins to deeply explore these questions, something truly remarkable occurs. Their mind ceases to be a battleground and transforms into a reliable ally. The individual no longer wages war with their thoughts, but begins to interact with them constructively, directing this energy towards building the life they genuinely envision. This is that unique human ability to transform one's inner world and accumulated experience to create an external reality that more closely aligns with one's true essence. One can only imagine how much one's life would transform if they possessed complete control over their inner world. Instead of feeling caught in a turbulent stream of thoughts, the individual could calmly observe them, deeply contemplate them, and purposefully choose their reaction. Such a state, far from an unattainable fantasy according to Jung, is entirely accessible to anyone willing to put in the necessary effort. Among Jung's most fundamental ideas is the concept of projection. It is often observed that qualities or actions in others that cause the most irritation in an individual are actually reflections of certain inner traits that the person prefers not to acknowledge in themselves. For instance, if someone criticizes another for arrogance, it's quite probable that this arrogance is a suppressed aspect of their own personality. Similarly, envy towards someone might indicate that this person embodies a dream the envious individual themselves abandoned. Jung asserted that human relationships function as mirrors, and what is projected onto others provides valuable clues to understanding those fragments of one's own self that have not yet been fully integrated. Understanding the mechanism of projection is crucial for gaining control over one's thoughts. Realizing that a significant portion of perceived external difficulties is merely a reflection of one's internal state allows for a shift in focus. Whenever something or someone evokes a strong emotional reaction in you, it's recommended to pause and ask yourself, what exactly is this phenomenon or person revealing about me? Such a seemingly simple inquiry can radically transform not only one's perception of the world, but more importantly, one's ability to manage their thoughts. Carl Jung, the seminal thinker, also left behind another profound and effective tool, the enduring significance of rituals and deep self-analysis. In today's dynamic world, people often neglect precious moments of quiet and focused reflection. However, a ritual doesn't necessarily have to be intricate or possess a religious undertone. It can be surprisingly simple. For example, dedicating a few minutes daily to journaling, practicing meditation, or simply being silently in stillness, allowing oneself to observe the flow of one's thoughts without judgment. Such a space, intended for establishing a connection with the inner self, is crucial for beginning the process of deciphering messages emanating from the depths of the unconscious mind. It's noteworthy that an idea exists which many might find truly revolutionary. Human thoughts don't have to be flawless for an individual to find inner peace. Jung tirelessly emphasized that the true goal is not the pursuit of perfection, but rather integration. That is, the ability to accept and harmoniously merge both the light and dark aspects of one's nature. It is then, when one fully and unconditionally accepts themselves, that they gain the opportunity to cease the endless struggle with their own mind and begin a full life imbued with genuine authenticity. This naturally leads to an understanding of a key principle: authenticity. Authentic existence doesn't imply a constant state of happiness or an ideal flow of all life circumstances. Rather, it means being in deep harmony with one's true self, where there's no need to wear masks or pretend to be someone one isn't, just to feel worthy. Jung was convinced that one of the fundamental causes of human suffering is precisely this internal discord between one's true essence and the image they feel they must conform to. And such discord, according to Jung, originates precisely in one's thoughts. Have you ever considered the inner narrative that relentlessly plays in your mind throughout the day? Often these are self-critical phrases: I should have done otherwise, I'm not good enough, or I'll never succeed. This pattern of thinking not only drains energy, but also shapes a subjective reality, influencing every action. However, there's a crucial point. You don't need to resign yourself to this inner dialogue. You can transform it, and through this transformation, change your life. This, however, does not mean simply repeating positive affirmations and expecting a miraculous resolution to all difficulties. As Jung asserted, genuine changes stem from deep work, from confronting one's shadow aspects, and from transforming beliefs that no longer serve personal growth. For when the inner narrative shifts, one's perception of the world also undergoes significant changes. What once seemed unattainable now becomes a real possibility, and the necessary people and events begin to appear in life as if by magic. The phenomenon often perceived as a kind of magic, that very synchronicity that inexplicably links all elements of a deeply harmonious individual's existence, is by no means a coincidence. The renowned thinker Carl Jung characterized this phenomenon as synchronicity, pointing to the principle that outwardly unrelated events can be profoundly united by a common inner meaning. When an individual embarks on conscious work with their consciousness, when they dare to confront their inner shadows and purposefully choose their thoughts, a tangible transformation of their energy field occurs. It seems as if the universe itself responds to this inner metamorphosis, directing external circumstances to align with one's well-being. But the question arises, how can one purposefully cultivate this attunement? The path to this begins with a step that seems simple, yet often goes overlooked: the practice of self-observation. Carl Jung, the renowned psychoanalyst, asserted that the starting point for gaining true control over one's own consciousness is impartial observation of its manifestations, devoid of any judgment. One can imagine the inner world of thoughts like a sky where clouds drift. Some might be dark, foretelling a storm, while others are light and airy. However, none of these mental formations possesses permanence. Acquiring the ability to observe one's own thoughts detachedly, without succumbing to automatic reactions to them, reveals a striking truth. You are not your thoughts, you are merely the observer, a witness to their appearance and disappearance. The simple act of observing one's thoughts, creating distance between consciousness and its content, can fundamentally transform one's relationship with their internal processes. When an individual realizes there's no need to submit to these mental constructs, they begin to reclaim lost inner power. The inner critical voice, sometimes robbing one of peace, loses its power as soon as it ceases to be fed by attention. According to Jung's teachings, at such a moment, a significant step occurs on the path to individuation, to becoming who one is destined to be. However, this path is rarely easy. There will be times when negative thought patterns seem particularly potent, as if they are trying to keep you in habitual, outdated behavioral patterns. At such times, it's crucial to remember, you are not fighting your thoughts. Instead, you are learning to understand and know them. Every appearance of a negative thought should be viewed not as something to dismiss, but as a unique opportunity for self-knowledge. You can ask yourself, what is the source of this thought? What part of my inner world seeks to be heard and understood? Carl Gustav Jung indicated that negative thought forms serve as a kind of warning signal, Their purpose isn't to hinder you, but to point to areas requiring healing, to those points where a connection with your true self has been lost. By confronting these thoughts, listening to them, and actively working through them, the individual gradually undermines their destructive power. In this process, one discovers that what was initially perceived as a weakness or an insurmountable obstacle, in reality, turns out to be a gateway to profound inner transformation. One can visualize this. Each time an individual chooses to confront their thoughts, rather than avoid them, they construct an indestructible inner fortress. In doing so, one demonstrates the courage to look inward, to explore the most hidden and at times most uncomfortable corners of their own consciousness. This inner citadel not only radically changes an individual's relationship with themselves, but also transforms their connection with the surrounding world. This leads to another fundamental point particularly emphasized by Jung, the vital importance of a life filled with meaning and purpose. When an individual's thoughts harmonize with their life's purpose, existence seems to acquire a natural, effortless flow. Such a state requires conscious detachment from external informational chaos and deep immersion in one's own intuition, that inner voice that invariably points to the best path forward. In a modern world overflowing with distractions, mastering the art of listening to this sacred voice can be one of the most significant challenges, yet it is also one of the most potent steps one can take for their own well-being. The essence of this process is not the instantaneous acquisition of all answers or a sudden epiphany revealing one's life purpose. Rather, it lies in the tireless, sometimes subtle, steps taken daily towards what truly imbues one with a sense of wholeness. As Jung asserted, human existence is not a destination, but an endless journey through the labyrinths of self-discovery, where conscious management of one's thoughts serves as a fundamental and integral component of this path. When an individual begins to harmonize their thoughts with their own profound essence, with who they truly are, this not only transforms their personal existence, but also serves as a powerful source of inspiration for others. Jung was convinced that efforts directed toward personal transformation inevitably have a profound and significant impact on the entire world around them. One's thoughts represent pure energy, and this energy affects not only their own subjective reality, but also the objective reality of those with whom they interact. Every conscious step taken on the path to one's authentic self serves as a silent yet powerful invitation for others to follow this example. One can ponder what might happen if every individual decided to take control of their own mind, fearlessly confront their inner shadows, and begin to live an authentic life. In such a scenario, society would witness large-scale collective changes, an unstoppable wave of transformation originating in the innermost depths of the human being and spreading outward, permeating every aspect of daily life and structured communities. However, these profound changes begin within the individual themselves, not with another person nor with something external, but directly with you in the present moment. The invitation is to choose conscious monitoring of your thoughts, full integration of your own shadow aspects, and acceptance of the inherent power that has always resided within. For when one transforms, the world around them inevitably undergoes change.